Oh,
Yes.
have you had that email?
Which one?
The one off that guy need in hand?
Oh, the one off Sid. Yeah. Point. We had an email off a guy how he's broken a stud on his car, but he's knocked the stud loose, can't get it out. So we'll show you just how to get it out. Okay, just like Blue Peter, here's one we prepared earlier. Okay, so here we have broken wheel stud on the hub. Now, as you can clearly see, we've knocked it loose, but won't come out because there's not enough clearance. Now, the Mark 1 Focus and that have a little slot where you can line it up and push it out. Not the Mark 2. You can go all the way around and it still doesn't drop out. So what we need is a specialist bit of kit to actually remove this wheel stud. Now, most of you won't be able to afford this piece of kit in your workshops, but if you go to a local garage, I'm sure they'll press it out for you, because what you need is one of these babies down here. Okay, one of these. This is a 10-ton floor press. You can get taller ones, shorter ones, bigger ones, smaller ones. These will retail around about 100 to 150 pounds. But it's a very useful piece of kit. If you're doing lots of maintenance work, for instance doing bushes and leaf springs and all that sort of work, then it's a very worthwhile piece of kit to actually invest into. But for now, what we're going to do is show you how we press the bearing out so we can change this wheel stud. Now, when you've got a piece of kit like this, you won't use that often. So every time you do want to use it, as you can see clearly by this plate here, this exerts 10 tons of pressure. That's a lot of force. So you need to make sure this equipment is in top condition. Check your pipe, make sure there's no kinks or leaks at all in that pipe. If there is, don't use it. Make sure your connectors, like here, are completely tight and secure, so there's no leaks. Make sure there's no damage to the arbor, because any damage to this, once you're under considerable strain, will fracture. Not it might, it will fracture. And also check your pins. The main cradle here sits on these pins. Make sure these pins are securely home and, again, secure and safe. Then, once you've done these basic checks, you're ready. Oh, one more thing we must do. Let's put on our safety goggles. I know we're pressing, seems odd having these, but if you're pressing and you get a little bit of metal fly off, if it goes ping, it'll go for your eye. So, safety. Okay, so now we're ready. With the hub, as you can see, it sits nicely onto our arbor, and so we don't need to put anything fancy in there to press it out. What we do need to do is put a solid block in to help sit onto the bearing, because what that will help is, because it's slightly out on the top, it will help focus the pressure underneath. Once we've done that, we just simply jack the ram down, hold the block in place just until it grips it. As soon as it grips it, let go. Keep your fingers and everything well away. You should. Okay, this one's moving now. I don't know if you can see, or you won't be able to see from here, but the ramp is now going down. Now, sometimes when doing this job, you will hear a big bang when it goes. Don't worry, that's quite normal. It doesn't always do it, but now you see, we pushed it down enough to get the wheel stud out. That's all we need to do. So now we take our new wheel stud, and that's the difference between the two, as you can see. So we take our new one, we drop it into the hole. Oh, we've got to go a little bit further down, because it's obviously a longer stud. We just drop it gently, straight in, and that's it, the new one is in. So we can release the pressure on the jack. You don't need to pull this up by hand, but it can be quicker. We take our block out, and as you can see quite clearly there, how we pressed the bearing out, and we got the new stud in. So we can then pull that stud in now with a nut, and then we press the bearing back into the housing. These wheel studs you can pick up for around about £3 each. So if you've got these sort of tools handy, then it's always worth changing the wheel kit stud yourself. Now, because this isn't a kit, we just bought the stud, you don't come with little fancy bits to pack it out to do it. That's easy. All you need is a couple of nuts. These ones are or what the size of nuts for these ones. These are M16 nuts. We just put 2 nuts on there. We got our wheel stud, or wheel nut, and we just screw that onto the end, locating it into the centre of the nut. Now, when you got the stud in, just rotate it a little bit, and you'll feel where it locks into the original spline. Just there. And then all we need to do is tighten our wheel nut up. And what it will do is it will pull the stud in. Okay, so once you've tightened all that up, pull the wheel stud in, you just simply take off our lug nut, 2 washers, or 2 nuts, put the nuts back in the tub, and there we have it. Our lug nut stud is now replaced, so that's all good and done. But now we've got to put the bearing back in the housing, and all we do is reverse procedure with the press and push it simply back in, and that's it. So we put the hub back in, put our block back on top to press it back in, and what I'm going to do this time is use a plate on top of it, because we're slightly off centre and we want to be able to push cleanly onto the drum. So we lock our pump off and we just simply push down, and you should see the hub actually going back into the housing. So just keep an eye on it, make sure you're on enough. And what we should have is that shoulder should be level with the hub housing. So almost there. That's it, just like that. Release the pressure, which will ring the ram back up, take our block out. See now, we've got 5 decent studs and pressed it back in, and turns nice and freely, so we're all good there. And you'll notice in the back, you can see that little charcoal ring there. That is actually a magnet. That's the reluctor ring for the ABS, so you must make sure that that is never damaged. But there we go, that is how easy you can change a wheel lug. Thank you for watching.